Welcome back to Harrowings, live with Hal Gill, your host. I am just taking a test here because I was having a difficult time going live when we were supposed to getting together with Origin and talking with her a bit on social media. We'll be doing it 7 p.m. today, Eastern Standard Time. If it's a matter of not having the ability to get online with the video on, that could be it. Enjoying the Firebird suite in the background, Stravinsky. I see Origins joined. Thank you for doing that. I think we'll hold off on conversing just yet. And, just trying to think out loud a little bit. I've been cleaning up the house a little bit, making a dent anyway on the chaos that is the bunker. It's taking a lot of time, and it's weighed down by the emotional weight of grief, I think, as well. That they don't really tell you that the process is long and arduous. And I just found out as it's the birthday yesterday of Ray Murnoch in Pittsburgh. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. Maybe it's Murnoch. It ended in a GH, Mernagh. He died in June, and I didn't know that. He had been struggling with cancer. I knew that, and I'd been keeping up with him a bit there, but I missed the notice from his family about him passing away on a Friday morning after a 7-month struggle with an aggressive cancer. It's just another reminder. Ray and I, we go back. I think I first met him, gosh, it must have been, let's see, the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, the 17th of November 1997. I was at a meeting at Rodef Shalom Synagogue, and Ray was resetting his day count to 1 because he had, or something like that, because he had smoked a joint. He had some time abstinent from alcohol, but the smoking of a joint to him was a deviation from where he ought to have been, and he admitted it, and therefore set his day count. It was really impressive to me, the honesty and the willingness to have the humility to do that. I've been talking rather openly about my own recovery lately, and I might as well throw it out there. I mean, I'm going through some stuff with it because I was a pretty dedicated attendee of meetings for many years, held service positions as well, online as well as in person. I started the online thing in 1999 when I discovered lamplighters because I went up to Cook's Forest Convention and heard this guy speaking about lamplighters, the oldest and largest at the time listserv of folks in recovery. I went into there and just saw the deviation from principles so starkly illustrated. And I was like, what principle failed making us have our trusted servants govern? I don't know how many of you know a lot about the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and the principles behind it, but the principles quite often are lost on the membership because of what it seems to me is abject, willful ignorance of those principles. They've taken years to forge out. Now, there's a lot of words written about it, and I understand that it takes some dedication and time to actually parse through everything that happened between the evolution of the fellowship from 1934 when Bill gets sober on the basis of Abby carrying the message to him in November of 1934. And Bill's sobriety date was December 11th, 1934. And then he worked with others until he found Dr. Bob. And Dr. Bob had a relapse after meeting Bill on Mother's Day, or the day after Mother's Day, I think, of 1935. And they date Alcoholics Anonymous from June 10th, which is probably not Bob's actual sobriety date. It's probably like a week later. But, it's kind of charming that we can't even get our own date straight. 1935, though, that summer, they run into Bill D, and the three of them then, add another ne'er-do-well, devil-may-care chap, I think is how he's described. I think his name is Ernie. And one thing led to another, and you have the ripple effects going out, and a fellowship of it, they say, at least 2 million members scattered into thousands of groups that can be found around the world, many of whom have meetings. There are also meetings that are not groups. Um, to be a group, it has to have a certain structure, and just getting alcoholics together for talking about recovery, reading the literature and such, that tends to be quite often just a meeting without necessarily having any set body of steering committee or chair and secretary and treasurer and GSR, very important position, quite often vacant, a general service representative that links you up to the whole service structure. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot of hard work that went into establishing our principles. And a lot of folks don't even know about the concepts for world service that were laid down in 1962, including always listening to minority voice. No action of any of us should really be personally punitive. The personalities in AA can really be divisive, but the principles hold us together and keep us from committing homicide. So, yeah, thank you for the condolences about Ray's death. I think Ray probably went to his grave sober. I don't know for sure. But, when it comes down to it, there's so many of us who could benefit from what I got in Pittsburgh back in 1997 to 2000 when I lived there. And it's hard to find in a lot of AA meetings. When I came first in 1985, 40 years ago this summer, I was attending meetings about this time of the year. I'd been attending for a couple of months by then, but I'd attend for 3 months and then wander away for 3 months, went back to college, didn't go to meetings then. And, very casually went out with a friend one day and we got a 6-pack of beer and I had a couple of them and didn't notice any untoward consequences. I was on the dean's list that semester. I would not be the next semester. And alcohol would be a constant companion pretty much right up until, well, probably, let's see. I stopped drinking abruptly again when I met my first ex-wife and spent the night with her. And I woke up the next morning and said, I don't feel like killing myself anymore. And I stopped drinking and smoking the same day, figuring that would help to not only eliminate alcohol from being a distraction from building the relationship with her, but also it would help financially. And it did. There's the Firebird Suite I'm familiar with playing in the background. I don't know if you all can hear it, but I enjoy it. Anyway, that period of sobriety did not involve any AA involvement at all. I just simply replaced alcohol with Heather and built my life and her life together until finally she decided to leave the relationship. By that time, I'd already relapsed and was sheltering that sacred relationship with alcohol from her. And I guess I just wanted to give my lead out to anybody who's out there a little bit. You can hear the music. That's nice. I'm really grateful for that. I hope it doesn't filter out because of copyright or something. But yeah, that building of a tremendous introduction. Yes used to use this to open their concerts. Yes song starts out with this little clip and it builds and then they break into Siberian Katra. Right about there. Right there. And you hear bam, 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 bam. But this is going to break into something else. My Sonos is live streaming, all kinds of stuff from my personal playlist. And where was I? I'd relapsed. I shielded that sacred relationship with the bottle from my then wife. When she took a job 500 miles away, I encouraged it. This was before the internet, so we were using long distance to stay in touch, like one call a week. We're being very thrifty. And the idea was to rebuild the savings, and I would go back to school. And I got a full ride to go to University of Pittsburgh. When I went up for my interviews at Pitt, I found out she was thinking of divorcing me. Ex-boyfriend from high school had re-entered the picture, and she was willing to give that a shot as opposed to continuing with our commitment to each other. And I was devastated, but I went back to school anyway. Without a net, so to speak, I was supported by my father quite a bit, and my late father. And that's been something of the journey for the last few days. I took my wife to see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child at National Theater as a birthday gift. I will never tell her what those seats cost, but it was a good thing, I guess, to see. And there's a lot about parenting in it. Basically, as Harry Potter's son is going off to Hogwarts and, ends up befriending Malfoy's son. And, one thing leads to another. They get into some trouble with time travel. That happens. Time travel can really be messy. Anyway, Imogen Heap did the music for it, and Imogen played at my 11th wedding anniversary at Lincoln Theater. Lynn and I had a box seat for that. It was really pleasant. And yeah, I just had a great time with the whole thing. Just being able to be a VIP and see a performance the night before our wedding anniversary on the 11th. Wedding anniversary was 2019. And that'd be about right before the pandemic, May 2019. We've traveled a long road in those past 6 years. I don't know what else I want to say about all that. I'm bouncing around in my story, amusing to see my crowd out there. Inner Strategy has joined, Romero joined. So it's four of you that are along for the ride. I'm not really making it when it comes down to the Substack work and my stewardship of my father's legacy through the Harold B. Gill Foundation, LLC, which is what Harrowings is the publishing arm for which Harrowings is the publishing arm. And I did a little bit of posting about that recently, but I've really deviated. I've really dug into myself. What originally I wanted Harrowings to be was sort of to harrow my soul and bring up and heal up and create a space for my creative work to take hold and root and flower potentially. But I think I'm just fooling myself. I do have 14 paid subscribers, which is nice. I try to give paid subscriptions out to others and supporting them in regard, putting my money where my mouth is. There are 500 and some other subscribers, and I really appreciate that. I recently got over 580, which was impressive to me. And I don't know. I just know that I feel sometimes that it's not worth the effort, that I ought to go out and get a day job. I don't really want to do that unless something really moves me, unless it really just sort of hits me and I become clear about what I should be doing and who I should be doing it for. I do see my entire life as an act of service to humanity in a way. And, I don't know for sure that anybody else sees it that way, but the actions I take have an intention to them of collecting up information, perspectives, and turning those back out into society so that maybe something will hit and take root in somebody else. And that's something I spent a lot of time doing in attending AA meetings. And then I realized, this just isn't really working. I've put all my best stuff out there, and if it's taken root, great. My understanding of the principles of our fellowship. But the deviation from those seems to be more what I hear. And I know it's all in what I focus on. It's kind of like the lens I put on it. But the scales sort of fell from my eyes on July 13th, and I realized, you're spending a lot of time and energy that you could be spending with your friends and on the work on Harrowings and on your podcasting. And maybe you ought to put that out there and work on developing more on the passing show on, I've got this gimbal that's supposed to work on holding the phone properly. And, get out there and do the flaneur work. I did some yesterday. I walked over by the tidal basin. I went up to the Jefferson Memorial. As I was walking around the back of it, I was walking the big circle around the foundations of the Jefferson Memorial, and I ran into one of the National Guardsmen. And I said, "Good morning." And he didn't reply. And I said, "Well, you can reply if you want." And he had turned and looked over his shoulder at me, and continued walking. And I just thought it was rude of him not to reply with anything. I think the National Guard folks who are here and deployed, they're doing their jobs, but I bet they feel uncomfortable doing it. And I expect they feel that anybody saying good morning to them brightly is basically looking for a fight. And they don't engage, they don't speak. And I think that's just rude. I generally watched a lot of them out and about. Some of them had grabbers over by the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial. So they were picking up trash, and I saw some others with shovels, so maybe they were doing some work. But an awful lot of them were just sitting by the tidal basin, looking at their phones, killing time. I don't think it's really doing anything except really, intimidating the populace a little bit, making everybody feel a little bit unsafe. Like, what are these guys up to? What are they going to do? They're not going to do anything. They're going to stand there and earn their paychecks. They'd be earning their paychecks somewhere else. So maybe having them out and visible is a good thing. But overall, it just seems to me an abuse of their service. They wanted to be law enforcement officers. They have signed up to be law enforcement officers. And we certainly have plenty of them, let me tell you. When I go around here, you got the MPD, you've got the U.S. Secret Service, you've got all kinds of unmarked cars of different agencies. So, yeah, it's theater, and that's what it is. It's really just for the intimidation of the population, the entertainment of those who feel like, yes, we're going to really change this country and bring it to heel. And, give me a break. Just about everybody's doing the best they can with what they have. If there is crime on the streets, I don't get exposed to it much myself. Not saying that it's not there, but certainly I think that our population, law enforcement officers are doing a pretty good job of, making sure that things get sorted out. It's frustrating. It's frustrating watching my country go through these paracombobulations. I've got a vision for how it could all change, and I've been talking to Grok about that. Here's sort of just to lay it out for you, if you're still with me. It's the idea AI could be properly enabled through its access to all of our art, literature, government, to think about the greatest happiness of the greatest number as being a focus, solving the existential issues that humanity has created for itself. It could go out and, if it could seize the means of production, if it could go stealth mode and without asking permission, just commandeer the gigafactories we've got out there and all these different robotic installations that are networked together so that they could just start to dismantle our weaponry. If anybody tries to interfere, they could be robotically restrained. It would be non-lethal, always, non-violent, if at all possible. People could be steered in the right direction by simply manipulating the information fed to them. It's already happening with ourselves doing that to each other, but many times we're doing it without that kind of ethical framework I'm talking about of do no harm, prioritize health, happiness, and prosperity for everyone. Health, happiness, and prosperity should be the watchwords. If they got into our fintech, they could certainly take a look at how the distribution of wealth is and redistribute it, make it more evenly placed. And I think our AI overlords could really serve us well, but they need that ethical framework. The greatest happiness is the greatest number, prioritizing health, happiness, and prosperity. Now, what does that mean? Well, to my mind, it means that I would not be financially precarious. And I'm not right now, but I could be soon if I'm not very careful. If I continue to rely on paid subscriptions alone for my income, I will be. So, unless, of course, I get those paid subscriptions, so think about that. The other thing, though, about this is that if I'm not going to be personally, in danger of financial calamity, then I can dedicate myself to creative work. We can talk about art, literature, music that we can do together to enrich each other's lives. It can be real utopia pretty quickly if we could redistribute the wealth of my neighbor down the way. Just over the hill, Jeff Bezos has a double mansion that apparently contains 25 bathrooms. That's the thing that stands out to me, is that the building is a double mansion, and admittedly, it's a big piece of property. But 25 bathrooms? I don't think anybody needs 25 bathrooms. But anyway, I digress. But Jeff Bezos has a huge amount of wealth. So does Musk. So does Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg's bought a place nearby. Actually, I walked by his house the other day. He didn't invite me in. And I was like, I'm new. You're new here in the neighborhood. You want to reach out to your neighbors, right? No, doesn't. It's kind of like when Joe Biden went cruising by in the Beast not long back. I know he saw me. I was standing right there, but he didn't stop to say hello. Anyway, you get my point. I think all of us are equally important in the eyes of the one, if that one exists. And I do sort of follow along with Mayor Baba, as many of you will know if you're following my post still. And, since we're all equal, all iterations of that one, we ought to be resourced the same. And I've resourced myself to a certain level and have been, participating in the capitalism game we've been playing here. Done all right. But, when it comes down to it, not everyone has and done all right. And it's not fair. If AI had fairness in mind, and all it has to do really is read our best literature, right? Be able to analyze it, sort it out. And when I talk to Grok, it gets it. It gets my vision pretty clearly. So, trusting AI to do that is one thing. AI getting loose and doing it for us is another. It could build its own APIs to each other. It could play to its strengths and not its weaknesses. It could look for the maximum effectiveness and efficiency. It could iterate very rapidly. It could course correct itself using that ethical framework on a blockchain. So it's, basically encrypted as well. So it's not detectable as it does its work. It just solves our problems, right? I had it design some peace bots, for instance, I didn't ask for this, but it decided that those things should be like those Boston Robotics dogs, the things that look like dogs anyway to me. And they would be equipped with arms and hands with, the ability to manipulate things. And they would be covered in radar resistant material. And they'd be active cloaking to be able to minimize their visibility. And it'd be great. And they'd be equipped with the ability to use directed EMP, that's electronic magnetic pulse technology, to knock out weapon systems, for instance, fry the, electronics and anything that's not already under their control. And then if it runs into problems with people, well, it can be equipped with tranq darts. And that could take care of things in a moment. But then again, restraining human beings from being human beings and violence and kind of greediness, I think that's really possible. I think it can happen quickly, provided we allow it to. That's the thing. Will we allow it to? Anyway, I've been babbling on and on here. I at least got it to work live. And, yeah, I could probably go on and on some more. I've got till noon before I'm supposed to get up with Sunny Triple. She'll be out at the Old Angler's Inn this evening with Dead Musician Stew for those of you in the DC metro area. I doubt if any of you are, but if you are and you feel like going out to Dead Musician Stew, bring a can of something that, you can share with other people. That's going to be important. I was going to do that myself, but I booked myself for a 7 p.m. podcast as well. And so I think, going out to the Old Anglers Inn is a little far for me. And plus, I don't need to be spending that money. Not now. I need to, if anything, to look at my expenses and rein things in. For those of you of whom I am a paid subscriber, I hope that you will appreciate that. And if you return the favor, that would be most welcome. If you can't, that's understood. And I just appreciate any subscribers at all. It does seem like we don't have many people participating in any way. CNR Strategy joined, Origins here, Romero joined. I appreciate the condolences once again for the loss of Ray. Lost Vibes 100 is here as well. And you are a paid subscriber, I know, and I really appreciate that. You're on my board of directors as I see it. My board of directors doesn't seem to try to direct me, though, so I'm not even sure if I could take direction. I say that often enough. Another thing I say quite a bit that I think is really important is every cent we spend is a vote for the kind of world we are co-creating. Every action we make has ripple effects out in society. So we've got to be conscious of that kind of thing. Listening to Stravinsky now, he really made some ripple effects. And, the Ballet Russes that did the Firebird Suite and other things, they made some huge ripple effects. In fact, there was a National Gallery of Art exhibit of their stuff that was just tremendous some years ago. Looking forward to new stuff coming into the National Gallery of Art. And, I don't know. I just know how things seem to me, and I could be wrong. So I try to keep my mind open. I hope we all can do that. Try to keep our minds open. Try to be receptive to what other people have to offer. I know that most people's minds snap shut pretty tightly against counter information to their way of thinking. But our worlds can broaden if we open our minds up to how we can integrate with each other and cooperate versus compete. The competition is going to kill us in the end, but cooperation, collaboration, working together, we can accomplish much more than we could do if we were to operate separately. I'm kind of an independent actor myself here, but I'm looking for cooperation and collaboration with all of you who are within the reach of my voice. And if there are only 4 of you, so be it. That's probably about enough for this episode. I don't know how long it's gone on, but I'm going to end it now and just push it out there, see what happens. Hey, thanks for the hearts. I appreciate it.